Welcome to the Israel Now Forum webinar series. I'm Maura Schreier-Fleming, Chairman of the Israel Now Forum Speakers Committee. The Israel Now Forum is scheduled for November the 16th in Plano, Texas. We want to thank our webinar partners, Southwest Jewish Congress and Texans for a Safe Israel. Today's webinar features Gil Hoffman, Executive Director of Honest Reporting. Honest Reporting promotes truth, integrity, and fairness in the media, and combats prejudice as it impacts Israel. Gil and his staff analyze stories and images of Israel and respond to inaccuracies or bias. Honest Reporting's educational tools allow users to judge media bias. They also have an active presence on social media, including Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can subscribe to their excellent newsletter at honestreporting.com and donate as well. Please use the Q&A Zoom feature to submit your questions during the webinar. We have time at the end for questions. And now we'll hear from Gil Hoffman about peace and propaganda with an insider's look at the fight for Israel on the media battlefield. Gil?
Thank you so much, Maura. Thank you, Alan Kramer, for recommending me for this great opportunity. Thank you to everybody who's participating in this webinar. Thank you to the ping pong balls for giving Dallas that top draft pick, and good luck with that. I'm happy for the people of Dallas. You should have success in sports again soon. And thank you to the Houthis for not firing a rocket in the last few minutes, allowing me to be here at any given point they can. They are threatening it. If it happens, you're going to be listening to Maura for a little bit over here while I take my little girl downstairs. That's how it is right now in Israel. And it's important to stress that. We are having this webinar on a crucial day security-wise. We are in the middle of a 10-front war. We will be addressing in this webinar all 10 fronts. Now I'm going to start with the security issues because of what's going on right now before I get to the media battlefield. This war is Israel's facing off against Iran, against its proxies of Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen. We've been attacked by Iraq, and from Syria. There's been attacks in the West Bank, including one that killed a poor pregnant woman on the way to deliver last week. College campuses in North America, mainstream media, social media. 10 against 1. And somehow we in Israel have had some success on all 10 fronts. The one that we've had the least success with is the college campuses, where anti-Semitism might be down by 10%, but it was up by 200% the previous year, so that doesn't sound too good. Now militarily. Right now, Israel is in Gaza again. 5 divisions are capturing land while negotiations go on. Netanyahu said for the first time in this 590-day war that these negotiations can end the war. All the previous talks, he believes that there have not been enough pressure put on Hamas in order to get them to finally make the sacrifices and end the war. This taking place on the same day that Saudi media has reported that Israel killed Mohammed Sinwar, the head of Hamas that took over for his brother, where Qatar is putting tremendous pressure on Hamas. Apparently, they are their benefactor. That pressure is being put on the only remaining head of any of the Gaza brigades. His name is Azzedine El-Haddad. Out of all the 14 that there were at the beginning of the war, he's the only one still alive. And so they're talking to him and to Hamas officials that are based in Qatar. Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy, is there in Doha. He was asked, does the assassination of the Hamas leader hurt the negotiations? And he said, absolutely not. We know who we have to talk to. An agreement can be reached. So there's newfound optimism from people that have not been optimistic that we're on the way to finishing this. And meanwhile, the army is going to do what it can to finish the goals of this war, of preventing Hamas from ever being able to rule again and bringing our 58 hostages home, um, including the 20-ish that we know to be alive. Um, this can all happen in the days ahead. And this is happening while the Security Cabinet is also meeting right now as we speak, dealing with a new system for providing food into Gaza, which will alleviate some of the international pressure that there is at this very sensitive time. The agreement that they're working on talks about bringing half the hostages home the first day of the agreement and the other half later on. There being a 60-day ceasefire that basically, for all intents and purposes, would end the war. And that could focus the internet, enable the international community to then refocus on Iran, who's under tremendous pressure now too, because Israel destroyed their air defenses, and they've got a deadline coming up at the end of September of the initial Iran nuclear deal completing, and uh, there will be tremendous pressure on Iran that military strikes will happen of the entire world uniting if they don't agree to a much, much better deal than there was before. Iran has been hurt not only by the counterattacks that Israel did after they attacked us both of those days that destroyed their defenses, also by their proxies, uh, really being, for all intents and purposes, destroyed. There were more missiles aimed at Israel from Lebanon than there were in any country in the world, aimed at any country in the world. And now not only are they gone and Hezbollah being a fraction of what it used to be, the Lebanese government is anti-Hezbollah and no longer calls for destroying Israel. We've come a long way. And Syria was the strongest country on our border, and we destroyed their army in 4 days, and their leader spoke to the president about joining the Abraham Accords last week. All this would have been unthinkable. Only the Houthis are still, unfortunately, still in a place to be attacking us every day, and it is totally unacceptable. We need our airport to be open to allow the tourists to come in, and America reaching an agreement with them behind our backs made us very worried wherever we are on the political map in America and in Israel. It's happening too much. And um, they're saying that they will continue as long as Israel is fighting in Gaza, which we are right now, and that they would honor a ceasefire if one is reached. I myself went to Gaza during this war. I was in Khan Yunis, where the IDF just returned. I saw how 80% of the homes in Gaza had some kind of terror infrastructure. 80% of the homes. The remaining ones that are full neighborhoods that are still there. You don't see them on TV because Israel hasn't let in film crews into Gaza. The only video you're seeing out of Gaza is ordinary Gazans with cell phones. They're not showing the lack of destruction in parts of Gaza. But so 80% of the homes in Gaza have some kind of terror infrastructure. 100% of the schools, hospitals, playgrounds, and cemeteries. It takes time to remove all that, and that is why we needed such a long war. And people don't realize that. But how did we get to have such a long war that we've needed in order to remove the terror infrastructure from Gaza? Well, first of all, the world saw that we had to attack after October 7th and respond after the worst attacks on Jews since the Holocaust. They saw that terror had to be defeated or it would be emboldened in their countries. They saw the way Israelis went from the verge of civil war to uniting in such a beautiful way at first. I also believe that one of the reasons why we've been able to have the war that's the longest in our history, but that we needed to have, is because success on the media battlefield is the key to success on the military battlefield. And you all have plenty of reasons to be upset that we didn't have more success. You've probably lost friends here during this war. But we really did come a long way. I appreciate what each and every one of you have done personally on social media and otherwise to help Israel in this war. I appreciate the army getting better at explaining itself abroad, at least for a while. And then there's what my organization has done, and I'm going to share a quick video about that that I believe I know how to do even. So first I go there, and then I go back to the Zoom, and then I click share, and then I press play.
Honesty is the best policy, but many of the most respected media outlets and social media platforms frequently ignore this, at least as it relates to the truth surrounding Israel. Sometimes the offenses are subtle, like when the BBC said that the 4 Israeli hostages were freed when they were actually rescued. Sometimes the offenses are wide reaching, like the Washington Post relying on Hamas to report casualty numbers. Frequently, they're outrageous, like known anti Semites pretending they're objective journalists working for outlets like CNN. And often, the social media algorithms reward lies, liars, and Jew haters. Honestly, this isn't right, isn't moral, and it isn't a fair fight.
So we at Honest Reporting are fighting back as media watchdogs and truth tellers.
And we're making important progress. But it's like David against an army of Goliaths. International news outlets have more than 600 reporters covering Israel. We only have a handful. TikTok pushes out 54 times more pro-Palestinian posts than pro-Israel, and younger generations were already less supportive of Israel.
So although we're small, we're resourceful and determined to ensure that the truth be told.
We get hundreds of stories corrected, journalists reassigned, and others fired. We are debunking myths, calling out misinformation, and sharing facts. Creating content which is reaching and influencing people outside of the echo chamber that's been delivered more than 100 million times in the past year. And we're leveraging AI to enhance our impact. So if you're concerned about anti-Israel bias, enlightening the next generation, combating anti-Semitism, and protecting Jews worldwide, we are working for you. Finally, we believe honesty is the best policy. And our policy is to ensure that Israel is treated fairly, to protect the Jewish state and Jews all around the world. That's the honest truth.
Okay. David against an army of Goliaths. That's what we are. We being Honest Reporting and we being the pro-Israel people online. And yet we don't fear an uphill battle. Um, every day there are accomplishments. Every day there are corrections of what the media has gotten wrong. We're up to 14 now. Hitler and Hamas praising anti-Semitic journalists suspended, reassigned, or fired, including 3 from the New York Times, 4 from AP, and 4 from CNN. We're making an impact. When the folks making that video asked us, can we say Israel's losing the media war? My response immediately was, well, are we losing the war against cancer? And there was silence, and they said, well, no, we've got progress at all the time. We're getting better than we used to be. And I said, yeah, us too. But we've got to stay vigilant. We've got to stay on our toes. And so that's why if our enemies are using artificial intelligence, so are we, not for content, to monitor the media. We've been training an artificial intelligence tool to with the categories of media bias that we have been using at Honest Reporting for many years. So it will identify them in media outlets around the world and filter them through. So the very small staff of human beings at Honest Reporting can then go into what they got from the AI and what people like you around the world have sent to us and know what we have to then attack aggressively with an article or on social media, shaming if necessary, or something quietly behind the scenes. And that tool will soon be open to the public to be able to, when they're reading an article and they think this is biased against Israel, but I don't know exactly how, they'll be able to use the tool and identify what exactly the problem is. Now, in the invitation, it said we'll explore how Israel navigates media narratives and public perception in global news coverage. Well, that's what this has been. This has been a battle over a narrative. We used to think, okay, we can just get the media to treat us a little better. We can regain our deterrence on the media battlefield. Now, we realized over time that it's more of a success, more of a chance for success in educating news consumers, in getting the narrative right. There are people around the world that think Israel's bombing Gaza indiscriminately and starving, and it's not true. We have to be explaining how it all goes back to October 7th and what was going on the day before. October 6th, Israel was moving full speed ahead to reach an agreement with the Saudis that would have, for all intents and purposes, ended the Arab-Israeli conflict with these yellow countries. It would have had African and Asian Muslim countries would have followed. That's according to the Wall Street Journal article just this morning. That's exactly what Iran wanted to stop by having its proxies attack us that day. That plan that they were working on would have also involved doubling the amount of Gazan workers coming into Israel, perhaps by the end of the negotiations, tripling it to revitalize the Gazan economy. That's where we were on October 6th at 2 p.m. When I had a briefing with Netanyahu's national security advisor. And we went through the threats facing Israel. And when he got to Hamas, he called them restrained. We need to get the narrative about the truth to the people around the world. And that's why we initiated an interactive map of the tunnels underneath Gaza. You can see it at tunnels at honestreporting.com, and people can put that in the chat window or whatever, so people will be able to see it. It's impressive. You can see how the tunnels go underneath schools and hospitals, including the hospital where Israel apparently killed Hamas leader Mohammed Sinwar and 10 of his men a few days ago. And you can see for yourself how difficult a challenge Hamas gave us in this war. Really bothers me when people say, "Oh, you're so strong and the enemy is so weak." No, the other side prepared for this war for 16 years, building up Gaza as the ultimate terror fortress. We started off from behind. This war is the Chicago White Sox against the Dodgers, and we're the White Sox. It's the world has gotten it completely wrong, and we need to be fixing that. We need to be telling people what's really going on. It's hard to fight a war underground.
We
Israel's
just put we just put the interactive maps in the tunnels on the chat part of the webinar. So is there any chance in getting that map on the New York Times front page?
no. Um, we're little by little. Where we can bypass the mainstream media. Our social media has gone from reaching 4 million people in 2022 to 8 million in 2023 to 16 million in 2024, and we already reached that many now this year.
So do you think social media is the battlefield that we should be focusing on? I mean, that honest reporting should be focusing on. And if the question answer is yes, can you tell us how their responsiveness to anti-Semitic and inaccurate propaganda has been addressed by these social media outlets?
Okay, I'm going to take both parts of your question. First of all, Maura, the reason why the battles on social media is because the young people are the people who matter. With all due respect, I haven't looked at the age group on this call, but there might be some people over 65 here. And the people over 65, according to the Harvard-Harris polls that have been taken every month since October 7th, asking ordinary Americans, are you more pro-Israel or more pro-Hamas? They've always been over 90% pro-Israel. Among the young people, it's bounced up and down and up and down because they get their news from social media, from Instagram and from TikTok. From up, it reached the 70s at one point pro-Israel. Now we're at 49%, meaning 51% of young people 18 to 24 say they prefer Hamas, say they're in favor of going to dance festivals and murdering, kidnapping, and raping. That's America right
Mm.
now, unless they don't know what they're saying. It's the best case scenario.
Possible.
And so that's why, with them being so impressionable, we can make a difference if we focus on the social media. And as for the second part of your question, more with the companies, well, I have very good relations with the people in Israel who work for Meta, for Facebook and Instagram, and the people who work for TikTok. They've helped us in getting around their algorithms in order to get to the young people and make a difference. They've used Honest Reporting as an example of the folks doing it right. We've taken it seriously from before October 7th. We were ready for this. There are other Jewish organizations that were, to put it mildly, very, very unready for October 7th.
Okay.
We were. There were organizations that are as ready for October 7th as Skype was ready for COVID. And then there are organizations like us that were as ready for October 7th as Zoom was ready for COVID.
So let's look at some of these social media outlets. We've got TikTok, which is from China. We've got Meta, which is the United States. What countries do you see a difference in which country owns which platform to be a source, or is there one country that's producing most of this misinformation on in the media?
More China's evil, okay? No one's going to argue with you on
I know
that.
that.
But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be on TikTok. We need to be fighting every fight we can. It's a mitzvah. The Torah says midvar sheker TikTok.
No,
You know,
but I mean that if they're the source of it, is China using it as a propaganda platform more effectively than, let's say, Facebook is?
sure.
Okay.
China's allied right now with Iran and helping them get nuclear weapons, and we can't let that be happening. We need to fight that fight. We need to be wherever we can be.
Do you fight the BBC and their propaganda and anti-Israel bias any different than you fight TikTok and Facebook anti-Israel bias?
It's amazing that because of social media, we can reach so many more people. Our average video, we make a video almost every day, so that whatever topic people will be talking about, we have it ready when you wake up in Dallas. And these videos get seen by more people than read the Washington Post or watch the nightly news in America. And so, yeah, we have to be ready to fight on social media just as much as the mainstream media, and there's just as much evil there as there is on the BBC.
Mhm. Do you find that if you look at the images, that that's what's driving these young people to hate Israel so much, or is it something else?
They want to support an underdog. I can understand that being a Cubs fan. And you can understand that being a Mavericks fan for a little bit there. And but look, if this is the Middle East, I think we're the underdog, and we're trying to get that message across little by little.
How
Uh,
do you portray Israel as the underdog as you fight this anti-Israel bias?
David against an army of Goliaths. On the internet, it's pretty obvious that we're by far outnumbered on every platform except maybe LinkedIn. LinkedIn counts.
Can you talk a little bit about how Honest Reporting started with that very first image of inaccuracy, media error, and it was used for propaganda purposes to foment anti-Israel bias and anti-Semitism?
Okay, so you're talking about
Yes,
this?
I am.
This is a picture of a menacing looking soldier over a bloodied boy who the New York Times reported was a Arab Palestinian boy who was harmed by this soldier on the Temple Mount near the Al-Aqsa Mosque until his father saw the picture in the paper and said, "That's my son. His name is Tuvia. He's Jewish." And he went into the wrong neighborhood, got surrounded by an Arab mob, and this soldier who's not Jewish, who's Druze, saved his life. And it wasn't near the Al-Aqsa Mosque where there is no gas station. They got everything wrong. And
So if that's the first inaccurate image, we now have the media plastering the destruction of Gaza, when in fact, when you say 80% of the infrastructure in Khan Yunis is terror infrastructure, and there are still houses that are still standing, we don't see that in the West. Can you talk a little bit about the present media photos that are inaccurate?
more, the largest media outlet in the world by far is Reuters. You know how many crews they have in Gaza? Zero. They're afraid. So it's just ordinary Gazans with cell phones. One of them was a guy that was we at Honest Reporting caught him being kissed by Yahya Sinwar when we asked the question, how did he get there so early that day on October 7th? Hassan Asliyah. The IDF finally put out proof that he was an active member of Hamas 2 hours ago. After we highlighted already on November 9th when I got a call from a media outlet that he was working for saying, check this guy out. That's the typical journalist in Gaza in this war, Maura. There's no Edward R. Murrow or Ernie Pyle or Daniel Pearl in this war. It's your typical hostage taken Gaza with cell phones.
So if we were to say, let's keep score, the people that are doing anti-Israel propaganda versus accurate reporting, the I mean the numbers would speak to themselves, and some of these anti-Semites would understand they're listening to the wrong people. Who keeps score?
Your ordinary citizens have realized this war, they can't trust the media. And that's important because previous wars lasted 4 or 5 days because then the international media put pressure on the world leaders, put pressure on Israel to end the war prematurely without accomplishing anything.
You
And
mentioned something. Go ahead.
this
Sorry.
time it's different. This time, because the media hasn't been believed, because they've been caught lying so many times, like the 500 that they said were killed in the hospital attack when it was a Islamic Jihad rocket. But they were broadcasting Hamas propaganda that they knew within minutes it was exactly 500 people, which 350 of them were women, another 250 of them were kids. Hamas math is different than other math. They bought it, and that made the media lose some of their integrity in this war, which is in part what's allowed this war to last as long as it's unfortunately had to.
Mhm. So what can the ordinary citizen do to magnify the work that you do and to help get the word out on all these inaccuracies and to condemn what's going on and
Well,
refute?
yeah, sure. Look, I figure there might be people here who've canceled subscriptions to top media outlets. And I'm actually against that. I want you to read these media outlets. I want you to watch the channel on TV that you maybe like a little bit less and catch them and send it to us. The email address, which I'd appreciate you put in the chat, is action@honestreporting.com. I hope people can see that who are watching this webinar later on. Action@honestreporting.com because we have a very small staff. We need you to send us stuff. Alan Kramer does it. He sees something problematic, he sends it to us, and we highlight it to the world. Um, we that magnifies our reach. And I encourage you to subscribe, not just yourself, but your children and your grandchildren without asking their permission. And if you're active on social media, please share our content, uh, especially on Instagram, but on Facebook too. I
Mhm.
mean, when you share our content, it goes to your friends of your friends and your neighbor likers of your likers, and it ends up going a long way.
So it's more important to get involved on social media. It helps to be reposting what you're putting out on your web on honestreporting.com and to spread the word about subscribing and contributing to honestreporting.com allow more people to do what you're doing to get the word out.
And it's also TV. If you're watching something on MSNBC or Fox or anywhere in between on the political map, and you see them report something outrageous, tell us the time that you saw it, so to be able to go back and find it and highlight it. remember there being a Saturday night during the prisoner releases, and somebody wrote me, I'm watching NBC, and they just called the Palestinian terrorists released from prison hostages. And I called up the people that I know at NBC. It got changed within 10 minutes.
Wow.
That's the way it works nowadays, Maura. Everybody on this call probably remembers the process of writing a letter to the editor where you would write in a typewriter or in print and then put it in an envelope and find a stamp and put it in a box and hope that a pigeon will deliver it to the media outlet and it'll go to the mail room there and the intern will bring it up to the mail room to the editor with a cigar who will decide what to put it on page 20 2 weeks after it ran. Now we have the AI telling us when something went online and alerting us, and it being changed on the internet within 10 minutes before the papers go to print.
So you mentioned AI. Is there any hope for the future that this anti-Semitic, anti-Israel propaganda gets stopped even before it hits?
It'll get stopped is a hard word, but we can make progress every single day. You don't look at a big mountain, you look at a bunch of steps, and after each step, you can feel pretty good about yourself.
Well, you've accomplished a lot when you get reporters reassigned, fired, and their misreporting corrected and forcing them to announce that they were wrong. You accomplished quite a bit, especially as a David versus the Goliath of the media. So congratulations on that.
I hope people saw what we did last week and the week before, where the Pulitzer Prize was given to a bigot from Gaza, an anti-Semite, and we're the ones, you might have heard it from somewhere else that didn't give us credit, but we're the ones who did the research, found what he said. I'm the one who called up Emily Damari, the hostage, and got her to highlight it to the world, which went viral. And now there's pressure being put on the Pulitzer people. They announced the prize last week, but they May 7th. Sorry, but it's been 11 days now. But they give it out only in October. There's plenty of time for you to contact members of the Pulitzer board,
Can you
including the
send us that
president.
email? And we'll put that when we send the link to this recording, we'll
Sure.
include that because we'll ask everybody and we'll send meeting notices out and everyone that's listening and watching this, please send to all of your lists of friends and family to contact them. An anti-Semite, an anti-Israel propagandist should not get the Pulitzer.
I have it for you. The email address is very simple. It's Pulitzer@pulitzer.org.
Great. Pulitzer at pulitzer.org. Write your recommendation that they rescind that award and or recognize the error of awarding it in the beginning and assign it to somebody else.
And if anybody here went to Columbia University that gives out the prize, I know we've got a lot of smart people that are part of this network here in Dallas. Please, the new president of Columbia is on the board. She admitted she didn't vote. Well, so it's not in her conscience, but she can still do something about it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Gil, you have given us so much to think about, and this has been very, very fascinating to know that there is an organization doing such a wonderful job of fighting anti-Israel propaganda and bias and anti-Semitism in this world. So if people are watching this webinar and the recording and they are very delighted with the work that they do, please consider supporting Honest Reporting. Go to honestreporting.com, subscribe to their newsletter, and you can certainly make a donation. So I want to thank everybody for attending today, and we're looking forward to seeing you again at our next webinar with Dr. Jonathan Schanzer, who is the Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, on Wednesday, June the 14th at noon Central Time. And we hope to see you all in Plano, Texas on November the 16th for the all-day Israel Now Forum, where you can hear more from experts on Israel today. And the website is israelnowforum.org. And bye for now.